And he is one of the best in the USA. Steve Aledort joins me on the program, our loan financial planner, loanfinancialplanner.com, a place you should visit often because he's got all the answers. Steven, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing well.
So the best bond I think you can buy today, and you get to shoot me down if you want, as you do every week, but I think one of the best bonds you can buy today is not to buy any at all and pay down your 4.5%, 5.5% mortgage or your line of credit, which is probably no longer deductible either way, unless you used it for home improvements, as many people have. But when you take into account the new tax bill, property taxes and state income taxes are frozen at a maximum of $10,000. You have a $24,000 standard deduction off the top. So if your property taxes and your mortgage interest don't exceed $24,000 for a married couple, you don't get any tax write-off.
Well, you don't get any, correct, you don't get any tax write-off for the mortgage. So, in the past, people would say, well, gosh, I'm going to go ahead and buy a home versus renting. I can get a 4.5 mortgage. I can write off the interest. So I'm really only paying a smaller amount, maybe 2.5 or 3% on my money. And that's not going to happen in today's environment. But what would be the advantages of owning versus, let's say, renting, with the fact that you no longer, in a sense, unless you have a higher mortgage amount, you're up to 10 grand on your property taxes as far as being able to itemize your deductions. What's the advantage of owning versus renting? Well, first of all, as we all know, that no matter what's going on in the economy, because we're not building as many homes, rents continue to go up.
That is a fact. There is no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And in places like where we live in San Diego, rents are at nosebleed levels. They really and truly are, as are prices. But I was talking to somebody from the Seattle area the other day, and it's out of sight up there.
Even higher up there.
Oh, it's horrible. It's just horrible. The market is up something like 13, 15% in the last year to buy.
That's incredible.
And the rents are also going up. So what do? You wait for the bubble to burst? It's really a tough decision in some of those super hot markets.
Yeah, so assuming that with rates where they're at right now, and again, if you're looking to buy in or even refinance, you may look and go, well, I think maybe values may come down a little bit, but realize too, we're seeing a pressure potentially of interest rates moving up over a longer period of time. They've stayed fairly steady over the last 5 or 6 months.
About 5% for a 30-year?
Lower than that. You can get a little bit lower than 5. With good credit scores, low loan to values. I'm still seeing some lenders in the mid 4s. But realize that if you're waiting for values to come down, what happens if at the same time interest rates go up?
Good point.
Bottom line is that you see a $600,000 house that you could potentially qualify for, but thinking that maybe it's going to go down to $550,000, but rates go up to the point where maybe now you can only qualify for a $500,000 home. So you got the yin and the yang you got to be careful of. Now, advantage of owning your home versus renting. So deciding, do I want to play in the market or do I want to just rent? Well, with this market, inventories are low now, but what happens if you're in a home, you've got a growing family, kids are in school, they're dialed in with their friends, and the person that owns your home calls you up and says, gee, sorry, I got to let you know, I'm putting the house on the market.
That just happened to me, as you know.
Yeah. So it makes it more difficult to put your roots down and be guaranteed that they're not going to be pulled up from you. You don't have to worry about putting a nail in the wall. If you want to change the carpet or you want to move a wall, you own the house. You can go ahead and do that. You don't have to worry about having an expense that you're not going to get remunerated for. And just as important, and there's no guarantee, you rent a home, you're not getting any equity or value on that rent as long as you are renting that particular property. If you own a home, you then have the potential of generating the equity in the property because the money that you're paying out on a monthly basis yes, a portion of that, at the beginning, a larger portion of that goes to the lender, but a portion of that goes to you in equity. So still lots of major advantages for owning a home.
Steve Aledort, our loan financial planner. So are you with me then that one of the best bonds you can buy today, if you're an investor, would be paying down that 4.5%, 5.5% mortgage loan?
Yeah, well, a lot of that, Ray, in most cases, the answer is yes. Now, it will vary based on every individual. So if I have a borrower that calls in and I look at their full profile, how old are they? What type of loan do we have? What is their income level, their goals, and their plans? Just as important, what kind of credit debt do they have? For me, if there's extra money up and above a mortgage payment, and if there's credit debt, my first recommendation is get the credit debt paid off. Because you're not getting any benefit on that credit debt. And in a lot of cases, you're paying an exorbitant amount of interest. I mean, it could be anywhere up to 15 to 20%. But once you've cleaned that portion up, to me, if you are in your 30s or 40s and you're setting up for retirement and you have a mortgage amount that you could potentially pay down or pay off by the time you're retired, then to me, it absolutely makes sense to pay more down on that mortgage so that you can potentially get that loan paid off quicker. Putting you in position, as we've talked on many shows, of potentially being able to do a reverse mortgage. Whether you need it or not, you'll have that particular option. Now, I just did a loan for a couple in their late 60s, mortgage of almost $900,000. So they know they're never going to pay off their mortgage loan. So what made the most sense for them is we did a 7-year interest only. Because their goal wasn't to pay off their mortgage. What their goal was to secure as long a term fixed rate with the lowest rate and the lowest payment to free up the cash flow that they needed and wanted.
What are they going to do after 7 years?
After 7 years, if they still own the home, we'll potentially go in and do the same thing. Because I'm actually right now, and we just closed their loan, I did a 7-year interest-only loan for them 5 years ago. So we were 2 years left.
They loved that.
On that, yeah, we were 2 years left on that loan. And luckily, because the lender that I was going to had some specials, I think our interest rate only went up 1/8 of a point.
Really? Wow.
But what we then did is we secured them an additional 5 years of that rate being fixed. So it made sense for them to not pay off their mortgage.
Everybody's different. Steve Aledort, our loan financial planner, I think Steve would not recommend a 15-year loan. I think he'd still recommend you do a 30-year loan. We'll talk about that when we come back. And what's the Fed rate hike mean to you? Equity lines, credit debt, all that stuff when we come back. So make sure you stick around. I also want to ask you about points.
Okay.
Whether or not you should pay those suckers. That's coming up here on the Ray Lucia Show. 844-RAY-SHOW if you want to chat with Mr. Steve. Otherwise, simply shoot us an email, raylucia.com, RAYLUCIA.com. Click on the Ask Ray button. Back in a flash.
Oh yeah, what condition, my condition.